The Dark Star. The Dark Star 6. When he picked her up, she had put on a dark brown leather jacket and had a bulky dark brown attaché bag slung over her shoulder. She swung the car door open and slid into the seat next to him, setting her bag on her lap. "Just in time," she said, gently closing the car door and pulling the seatbelt buckle over her shoulder, snapping it in place. "I talked to Hertz Rental Car and they've got a car ready to go. My car, on the other hand, is total for sure. Your buddy down at the body shop said the engine got pushed off its mounts or something like that. Long story short, it's fucked, and I'm in a rental till I find a new ride." Michael pulled out onto the main highway after pausing a moment to let a big panel truck lumber past and brought the car up to speed. He glanced at her from the corner of his eye. "So, what can you tell me about this game designer? I mean, we used to play it a ton when we were kids, but it wasn't any more special than Mario." Nancy unzipped the bag on her lap and pulled out a sleek black laptop computer and unfolded it on top of the bag. She opened it up and pressed the power button, the screen coming to life with the loading screen. "One of the advantages of writing for a magazine," she said, pointing two fingers down at her laptop, "I get the newest Gear 4 on the scene reporting. Most tech geeks would kill for this hardware. Here, let me pull up the file," and she went to work with the cursor and keyboard keys clicking and clacking while Michael drove along the rural highway, the occasional car zipping past in a whir of wind. "Okay, so it was Agent Zero's mission that your friend left on that drive you found," she said, staring intently at the screen as she maneuvered through the subfolders of her working drive. Michael stared at the road intently, the car curving around the sharp corners while the trees went past in a blur of green. "Yeah," he replied, "we used to play it on the Commodore 64 that Ben had. It was one of the earliest home computers." "Yeah, my article covered most of the early personal computers, and the Commodore 64 and the C-128 were legendary. Anyway, that game was designed by Dr. Alvin Campbell, who founded the company Automated Simulations back in the late 1970s, and it was the very first game to have a rudimentary intelligent agent." "Intelligent agent? What's that?" "Basically, it's a computer program that's designed to make its own strategy and tactics in order to make the game more difficult for the player." "So, like an NPC in a video game?" Michael asked. "In a way, yes, absolutely. But according to Dr. Campbell, his was different." "Different how?" Nancy scrolled down the wall of text to find the notes from her research on automated simulations before clicking on the file named Dr. Alvin Campbell. The document opened, and she scrolled down the PDF file. "So I was never able to schedule an interview with Dr. Campbell, but I did find an interview he did back in the 80s with a technical publication where he talked about developing the AI for this game, and he was in a time crunch. Basically, he was using the game as a tax write-off, but it needed to be finished before the new year in order to qualify, and he said he couldn't get the intelligent agent, his words, to work, so with only 5 weeks to go he tried something different. He set two of the intelligent agents against each other, one as the protagonist and one as the antagonist, and he let the program run. He then took the two best agents from the first simulation and ran them against each other, again and again and again, until something clicked, and suddenly the intelligent agent was too good. Even Dr. Campbell said he couldn't beat it at the highest settings, so he turned the settings down to make it challenging for the player, but he said he felt he had created a self-learning machine. He talked about it like it was a person." "So what happened to this guy? Or his gaming company?" "I never heard of this, but then again, I was a kid and I moved on to Nintendo and Mario and forgot all about this game until a few days ago. His company was bought out by some mega conglomerate in the early 90s that own a lot of these classic games, and Dr. Alvin Campbell did some revolutionary research for Stanford University in artificial intelligence by simulating cats' brains for computer emulation using supercomputers, which laid the groundwork for the advanced neural network currently under development at the bleeding edge of artificial intelligence. But then 6 years ago we went total recluse. Doesn't do interviews. Has no social media presence. He was living just outside of Buffalo, New York according to the tax records I found while I was researching this, but he never responded to any of my emails, and the only phone number I found went to an answering service. Michael looked at the cars in front of him and the red light up at the intersection. He needed to get in the right-hand lane to turn into the Hertz parking lot, and click the stalk for a right-hand turn, and check the rearview mirror before sliding into the far right lane. "Did you try knocking on his door?" he said, laughing while the car turned into the rental car place's parking lot. He put the car in park. "So this guy makes a gaming company in the 70s and invents some kind of self-learning program, sells that company and starts simulating cats' minds on supercomputers?" "Why cats?" he said, turning to look at her. "Cats are way more intelligent than anyone gives them credit for. Their cerebral cortex is 30 times that of dogs, which is why people say they are frustrating as pets. Cats are sometimes too smart for their own good." But anyway, they started designing neural networks with small insects and mammals, but it wasn't until they got to cat-sized cortices that the results became more tangible, more useful. And his research paved the way for it to advance to where it is today. Which begs the question, why did he cut himself off from the world? Why did he leave this field of research? And what the hell does any of this have to do with the email David forwarded me, or why Ben had a copy of this game when he was rummaging in his old room? "Do you remember what that email he sent said?" she asked, looking over at him inquisitively. "It was nonsense as far as I could tell, or maybe it was a poem. Honestly, I don't remember it word for word, but I can email it to you if you want to take a look," he said while she closed the laptop and slid it back into the shoulder bag. "Well, let me go and see what piece of junk they put me in." She reached into the center console of the car and grabbed a pen and pulled a piece of scrap paper from her bag. "Here's my email address," she said, scribbling on the paper. "Send me that email and any info you have on your friend Ben, and I'll do what I can. I am an investigative journalist, after all. I didn't start this career to write puff pieces all my life." Michael took the piece of paper as she handed it to him and tucked it into his front pants pocket, and Nancy reached for the door handle, popped it open and stepped out onto the parking lot waving goodbye as she shut his car door behind her. He watched her walk away for a moment before he turned the car around, pulled out of the parking lot, and headed back home.